Welcome to the third MIEE session on the program of 7. Today we are going to have a brief look at the application process and just check where people are with that. We'll also then spend some time looking at accessibility tools to really drive independence of learning or access to learning in all subjects across the curriculum, and it's an area that Microsoft really like to see in your MIEE application. So if you have been using them already, great. Make sure you have lots of examples about how they have been a positive leveler in your classroom, but also it might be beyond your classroom and you've had success with inclusion of parents, also helping staff. So do bring everything in the round into that application process. The application itself, been through this a few times, but some people are still contacting me, so I'm just going to quickly go through it. You need to join the Microsoft Education Learn Center. I think most people that have been on these sessions have. I'll give you another code at the end of today that you can redeem, and then it will give you the 1,000 points if you haven't had time to do your own courses. That will give you MIE status, Microsoft Innovative Educator. But what you need to do then is submit your application in the summer to become an MIEE with all the evidence around that. The Microsoft Education Center, which is changing to Microsoft Learn Education Center, is still in the process of phasing across. One of the things that I've asked for clarification on from Microsoft is the problem that we have at the moment, that anyone who's moved to Microsoft Learn is not able to redeem the codes we're giving out. Microsoft have said yesterday, and it was also mooted at BET, that they hope to get that rectified by April or May. So if you are currently moved over and you volunteered to move your account yourself, there's nothing you can do at the moment to redeem those codes. Just sit on them and wait. And then before the MIEE process, you will be able to redeem those codes anyway. So the pathway that you're on is moving from an MIE to become an MIEE, which may well lead in turn to you being a digital leader in school and driving you into becoming a showcase school, or you might just be quite happy sharing and raising standards within your school or within the local community, whichever way you choose to work within the MIEE community. Today, as much as any other day on our course, we are going to be driving home the mantra of making classrooms more accessible, and certainly with the inclusion tools that we're going to use today, that is very much true. It does help to engage pupils and students with learning, because all of a sudden they're able to access resources that it may have been a difficult thing for them previously. But as well, it reduces workloads for teachers very much so, because you can prepare a resource once and then have the pupil or the student or the parent or the governor adapt it to suit their own needs. And it's something that's really powerful in today's session. So you do need to go and pick up the MIEE self-nomination evidence document. That's available free on the MIEE portal. Once you've got that, you'll fill in phase 1 about you, and phase 2, which I'll speak about in a bit more detail in a moment, is around your general understanding of Microsoft, the technology, the impact that you can have with that technology, and you need to get 70% or above in the way of correct answers to pass that. And phase 3 is going to be the long answer questions, and then you need to get all of that in for July. And if you have it in slightly early, they will pre-vet the phase 2, and anything that looks incorrect, and have a brief look at phase 3. They'll come back to you and say, look, you've got a week, turn this around, improve it, and then they'll ask you to resubmit after those 7 days. So phase 1 we spoke about last time, so I'm going to skip through that pretty quickly. It will not affect your application in any way. Microsoft just want to know a little bit more about you, and Lanny supported this during last week's guest speaker session. It's really understanding how proactive you are already within education, IT communities, what sort of things you're passionate and interested about, because Microsoft do approach MIEEs to work with them to reach out to other schools, be it in the UK or in other countries, and they use that part of the form to do that. Phase 2 are the scored questions. What we will do in one of the later sessions, we'll go through that actual form in more detail, and I'll have some illustrated examples of what to put in the way of answers for each question. But phase 2 is very much linked to your CPD and the courses or the learning pathways you've completed in the Microsoft Learning Education Center. You will need to give a screenshot of courses that you've achieved, and you can get that by clicking your initials, and it'll have have a nice picture there of everything that you've covered so far, the dates that you completed them. Then there'll be a series of quantitative questions, and they'll ask you about your pedagogical use of Microsoft Education tools. It will also ask you to talk about the range of Microsoft 365 apps that you've used. So that's looking at features that you might have in Windows. So it could be in Windows 10 or 11, you've been using OneNote class notebook that's built in addition to the online version. So just branch out and think more than Office 365. Think about the wider Windows environment and anything you've used there. Got an example of that today as well, the accessibility side of things. Then the responses are marked by AI. It's a computer that marks them. There'll be certain keywords that they accept, and there'll be others that are excluded. It's very rare that somebody as a human being would look at this and pick through the answers that you've given, because there just isn't the time with the amount of MIEE applications coming in. It's a different story with the phase 3, which we'll pick up on the next session, because the phase 3, they do look at in great detail, and there is a human being that will read your responses or look at the screenshots you provided or the videos you've submitted and so forth. That timeline remains unchanged that we gave to you before, and I caught up with the education department of Microsoft when we were at BET last week. So they are very much there to help you. There will be the community from last year that you can go and speak to. There'll also be the resources they've got on the portal, and then the sessions that we're providing will give you that greater opportunity. We've got the community at the moment. I know people are really busy, but in that community, do ask questions, do pop in ideas. If you find something great or you've discovered something that works really well, pop it in there and people will pick it up and they will use it. And that is your direct support community, because you're on the journey with us supporting you as a global training partner from Microsoft. On the application front, has anybody got any questions or anything at the moment they've been particularly struggling with, or anything they just want clarification on around the application at this time? More than happy to pause and take questions, or for you to share your experiences so far. Just check over in the chat. Nothing in the chat. Anybody need to unmute and ask anything? No? Okay. We'll continue on then into accessibility tools and the accessibility tools that we're going to focus on in the session. Now, there's quite a range of accessibility tools that Microsoft offer, be it in Windows 10 and 11 or in Office 365 itself. So we'll have a look at them, but we won't spend as much time as we normally would in a full-blown training session looking at accessibility tools. One of the biggest levelers is Immersive Reader. If you haven't tried it yet, just go and do it. It's so easy to pick up. Even people that hate technology in school and wouldn't normally use it will be able to get on with it. And very quickly, you'll be able to use it with pupils of most ages. Certainly parents and governors have seen real level of success with using Immersive Reader. Office Lens as well will show you how that works. The maths tool, and that's available in several things, but particularly in OneNote, and we'll have a look at that. Translator is really useful for covering additional languages of pupils or parents that you work with. And then there's also some nifty little tools in PowerPoint, such as Coach or Narrator, and then the captions function, which links to Translator as well. So all of those you could consider for including in your application. You won't get your head around all of them unless you are particularly keen, but pick the ones that are most relevant to you. But if there is one that comes at the top of the list, it's Immersive Reader, and then try and pick another one that's absolutely relevant. With Inclusive Classroom, you're not supposed to read that infographic. When I put the deck in, that hyperlink text there will take you to that infographic. But really, the philosophy behind Microsoft Learning Tools and Access to Learning is that it covers all areas, from mental well-being to visual impairments through to just very common reading and writing problems on a daily basis. And that there'll be a feature or a function or something you can enable that will support learners or parents in making better use of the resource that you prepare. We've spoken about reducing workloads, but with the tools that we're going to look at today, you truly can prepare one version and then have the person adapt it to suit them. You will need to invest some time in showing them how this works, whether it's working with pupils in the classroom or sending home some guidance to parents. If you need guidance for parents, particularly on Immersive Reader, if you just open up a web browser and pop search engine and put in Microsoft Immersive Reader, there are lots of guides that you can then send home in links to emails or in sways, whichever you're going to use to get information back to those parents. Again, there's the link at the bottom of this slide when you can get the slide, and I'll pop it into our team after this, where you've got a periodic table of accessibility tools and then which Microsoft applications or parts of Windows that they're available in. Down the left-hand side, you've got all of the accessibility areas you might be looking at. And then across each of the rows, it tells you the product, the software package, or the application that they're available in. And that's growing all the time. This is updated by Mike Tholson, and he's particularly keen on making sure that this stays here. Also, if you've been following Mike, somebody else to follow from an MIEE perspective is Hector Minto. He is heavily involved, and he's also started working with the UK government on access to learning using technology, and he has feed into this in Microsoft too. When you come to promoting independence in learning, Microsoft has really considered it in the round, and whichever support you need, they have something that you can switch on or something that you can enable, even helping people that might have hearing impairments, and you need to make better use of that, and having clear dictation and text read to you. It is all there. So coming back, Immersive Reader and PowerPoint Live in Captions all work really well together. If you are trying to have something read to you and you can't get it, Immersive Reader will turn it into audio. It will also turn it into text. But in PowerPoint Live in Captions, which you can use on things like stream videos, but you can also use it in OneNote as well, you can have captions coming up at the bottom of the screen, and they can be in the native language of the individual who needs it. So you might be talking in English and they could be listening in Spanish. And it does work in real time. It just does require an internet connection. It won't work offline. So as far as an inclusive classroom is concerned, there'll be 4 areas we will have a look at this afternoon. And as we go through those 4 areas, feel free again to jump into the chat, ask me any questions about it. If you've used it yourself and you found real success, pop that in there as well, because I really do like to find out what you're doing. And also I often learn things from the way that people are using these tools, particularly in this area, in this session is one of those. So we focus on reading first. Immersive Reader has not been just developed by Microsoft, it's been developed by all sorts of people. There's been a massive feed in from dyslexia organizations. They've played a massive part in the way it works, the way it feels, the features that it has. And Microsoft, in some ways, is playing a back seat here. They're guided by the experts. They're guided by schools, people and educators in the community, telling them what's needed, or if something doesn't work the way it should, they will adapt it. So there's a lot of feedback and a lot of listening from Microsoft in this particular area. On Immersive Reader, it's got lots of functions. It will read aloud. You can change backgrounds. You can label. You can break things up into syllables or dictionaries and so forth. So I think the easiest thing to do at this point is to break away from the presentation and jump across and have a look. Before I show you the Immersive Reader, one of the things I wanted to highlight to you, and we won't labor it too much today, the features that I'm going to show you now are available in Windows 10 and Windows 11. But if you go into the Windows launch key, which is the Windows key on your keyboard, it has a little window on it, or you can go into, on Windows 11, the bar and the docket's floating in the middle, or you can press the Windows key, Control and O, and it will bring you in. Now what you can do is you can change lots of different aspects about access in Windows itself. So you can have text larger or smaller on the display. You can also change the mouse pointer so it's a different color, so it jumps out with animation at you, so it tracks slower, tracks faster. You can have the text cursor in different colors and different speeds. So as you can see, as the example of the text on screen, if you've got the purple at the end, it really does show the person. Instead of a very faint flashing cursor, it's very obvious where the cursor is sitting in the text. Magnifier is amazing. You can hold a magnifier over Windows itself and it will magnify like holding a real life magnifying glass over the text anywhere in Windows, and that applies universally. You can also have color filters which are toggled on. When you put color filters on, it will change the filter in the text. So I've got grayscale, but you can have inverted. I'll turn that off again. So if colors, you've got color blindness, you can also have all different sorts of color filters. So it's worth playing around with that. You've got red, greens, blues, and yellows. You can also apply high contrast. If I turn on high contrast, it will swap my laptop over. Should happen fairly quickly, and you'll get a high contrast version of Windows 10 or Windows 11. That works the same in both. I'm just going to turn that off again for this session. Just wait that resyncs. And then finally, you've got Narrator, and what Narrator will do, it will talk to you, and whatever you're hovering over, and this is particularly useful for blind pupils or visually impaired pupils, the computer will talk to you and it'll tell you where you are. You're over Start menu, or you're over a particular button, or you're going to open up Word, and it really opens up possibilities of using Windows. There are specialist packages as well, which I know I've got SEN provisions using, and those add even more dimensions, but the basics that are involved in Windows are improving all the time. And there's something that I would just say play around with initially, see how they work for you, and then go from there. We swap over and we leave the Windows function. So when I said M365 and features for accessibility in Windows, those are some of the features you might mention. Even if you just try one of them, which might be the Narrator, which is a common one that people use, you can then use that in your MIE application. I'm going to jump over to use Immersive Readers. I'm just going to swap over and I'm going to go to another web browser. Okay, it should sync across in a minute. There we go. So in OneNote, and that's what I'm going to use here today, I've just opened up OneNote Class Notebook. You can open it up as a dedicated app, and you can find that up there in the app launcher. That's OneNote without Class Notebook, so that would be if you're using it in a professional capacity, maybe for notes taking or in meetings. If you want the Class Notebook features, open up this version, or you can open up OneNote on your computer. It's in Windows 10 and Windows 11. Once you've got that open, if I jump back over, here I've got a page of text. It's a task, a writing task that I prepared to use in English. And it's got quite a dense amount of text there, which is going to be a problem for some of the pupils that I have in my class. So what you can do is you can use the tools that you've got available in OneNote Class Notebook, and Immersive Reader is one of them. Now, Immersive Reader isn't just in OneNote Class Notebook. It's available across a huge amount of the Office 365 apps and beyond. Microsoft have also given this to some third parties to use, so I know it pops up there. You always the same logo, so the logo is universal in the way that it works. You can click Immersive Reader in whichever application you're in, and when you click it, it takes the text from the original page and it transfers it into a more accessible version. I was having a long old think about that at the moment. There's obviously quite a bit of text there, but once it comes over, it strips away all the busyness of the page, and you can change the text, you can amend the backgrounds, and you can make it work in a way that makes sense to you. So as a teacher, you can prepare that original OneNote page, and then you can have it adapted to suit all of the individual pupils. And what they would, that's not work very well, what they would do is change it for them, but they wouldn't change the original, and they wouldn't change the effect of the other people that are there. Let me try that again. So let's open that up and try and play Immersive Reader again. There we go, it's worked this time. The same features available in desktop OneNote. It's available in Word, PowerPoint, even Excel. So you can see the text that it's taken. It's taken it in and it's split it out so that it's spaced, but it has left it in the original formatting. Now you've got 3 tabs up in the top right hand corner that are absolutely key. We'll look at text preferences first. So if I press that, a little window will come out on the side. What I could do is change the size of the text to a comfortable level for me to be able to read it. So if I needed it magnified to a larger scale, I just drag the slider across, and when it's at the size I need it to be, it's fine, I'll leave it there. I could also increase the spacing or take the increased spacing out if it's too much, but making bigger gaps between the words and the letters often helps. Now, at the moment, there's only 3 fonts in Immersive Reader, but they are quite useful fonts, and we're requesting more all the time. But if you think in the feedback it would help you, do put a feedback in. A lot of people just go between Calibri or Comic Sans. Comic Sans tends to be more handwriting-ish, but I fully appreciate it's not completely handwriting. And then you might again have some sort of visual impairment with your eyesight, and you need a different color background. So you might need a yellow, or you might need a pale green. Those can be easily applied, and then they will just stay on the page while you're using it. But as you can see, that's changed for me and me only, but it doesn't affect the other people in the classroom and the way that I need that resource set out. You can change the formatting as well. So you can have it to match the formatting of the original text that we looked at on my OneNote page, or you can take the formatting out and then it will just collapse into paragraphs and sentences, or you can break it up the way that it was set originally. So it's entirely your choice. So in text preferences, there's quite a bit there that will start to make a difference to you being able to access that information. Then the next is grammar options. Some people use this for accessibility, others use this for things like SPAG if you're in primary schools. There's lots of different ways that you could pick it up and run with it. But the ability here is to break the words up into syllables. So that might be the only thing you want to do. If you toggle that on, you will see the dots appear to break the word into the syllables that you've got. You could also show where things like nouns are or verbs. So if you toggle the button across, nouns are showing up at the moment in purple, adjectives in green. If you want those in different colors, because there's a visual need for that or an accessibility need, you can change them around so they don't have to stay the colors that you've got them. If it's confusing and actually it's really hard to remember what the green represents and what the purple represents, if you've gone back over to, let's say, text preferences, you can go back to grammar options and you can have those labeled up. So above each one, you've got an N for noun and you've got an ADJ for adjective, and it helps to navigate that text and remember what the highlighting is there for if you are not on the grammar options. The third and final one is reading preferences. Reading preferences are quite a handy thing to use. So you've got line focus. Line focus will apply, and particularly if you've got dyslexia, it will give you that narrow focus there. And when you are reading the text, whatever's in the window will be the bit that's red, and we'll look at narrator last. But there's also picture dictionary. I'm just going to turn the line focus off. Picture dictionary is really useful, and I've got mine toggled on. But if you click on a word, it will give you the pictorial representation of what the word is. Now, often we have different pieces of software for this. So most words will have some sort of description pictorially of what it is, but not all of them. And you can then go in and look at that, and you can click on the individual word and have that read to you instead of having the whole passage of text. The final thing that I want to show you in the reading preferences is the translate function. So if you've got EAL pupils or parents which are native English speakers, what they could do for you following the guide, you can take this and you might say, look, I'm coming in and I need this in Dutch. So you can have each word in Dutch. So then you could click on week and you could see week, and week is in Dutch. Let's see if there's one that says, so reading is leasing in Dutch. You can see the English and the Dutch version, or you can go one step further and you could take that version you've written in English, and to save you having to convert it as a teacher, you can press the whole document. And then what you've got is the Dutch version, but you could toggle back to the original as well because you can move in between. But people can be really independent using that tool to increase the accessibility for them. And because this is available across the whole of Office 365, you might have a Word document, you might have a PowerPoint presentation. You can make it and then they can adapt it to suit them. All they need is some introduction to what OneNote class notebook is and how it's working. And that can be happening in a lot of different ways, all in one classroom on different devices. I'm just going to flick that off a moment. Once you're finished with Immersive Reader, you can come out of it by pressing the arrow in the top left-hand corner. But one of the other big features is that you can have that text on screen read to you. So you can change voice options here to be male or female. You can also change the speed that the text is read back. So if you need a lot of time to process and listen to what's coming to you, you can drag it right over to the tortoise. If you just are impatient and you want to get through it because you can understand what's being read, you just can't read it, you can speed it up to the hare. And then all you need to do is press the play button at the bottom. And when you press the play button at the bottom, you will get it ready. And it will read it out loud. You can either have that with headphones on, because if you've got a whole class full of pupils, it can get really off-putting, have them all listening to their own version, particularly if there's a lot of different languages. Or it might be that they're just doing this to understand the homework, because this works in assignments, it works in forms, it works in Sway as well. So there's lots of different places you can go and pick up and use this tool. That's an introduction to Immersive Reader. Has anybody used it? Anybody got any questions about it? Anybody want to share their experiences of it at all?
Hiya.
Hello.
On the like the desktop app, does Immersive Reader, is there Immersive Reader on that at all?
There is. So you will need to have Office 2019 or the desktop version of Office 365, which comes with your school subscription, which are the installed versions of Word, PowerPoint, Excel. It's not available on older versions of Office. It's not supported. So if you've got Office 2016 or below, it won't be there. But what you can do is you can use the web app version, and in the web app version, you can pick it up from there. So if I went across to PowerPoint and I went to review, he says looking for it, there we go, no, it is there, view, review, it's there on the online version as well, so you can pick it up from there and you can use it in the web app version even if you don't have the latest desktop version installed. So you have got that option.
Lovely, thank you.
No problem at all. Anybody else like to ask anything or talk about how they've used it, if they have used it? Can I just get a quick show of hands up if you have used it? You can do the show of hands on the reactions in the top of the meeting bar next to the chat if you haven't used that before. Just put your hand up like you're asking a question. No one's had a go at it yet. Okay, so that's definitely an area to have a go at. And usually when you show it to staff, they go, wow, doesn't seem too bad to use. And they're open to having a go with it. And it can be a massive leveler with giving access to learning. It's also a really good evidence piece to include in your MIEE application. So I can't emphasize enough. If you haven't tried it yet, pick it up, use it, get some evidence of it and include it in the application. The other area to hit the M365 element in your MIEE application is try one of the Windows 10 or 11 accessibility features we looked at previously, and they will help with strengthening your application as well. So just going to jump back over to the presentation at the moment, and then we'll come back over and look at another app. Okay, so Immersive Reader is available in pretty much the whole of the Office 365 suite, even in a whiteboard. It's in Minecraft Education Edition, which we'll look at towards the end of the MIEE series, and it's also embedded into Office Lens. It's in all of those partner platforms at the moment. So if you use something like Wakelet for resources, or if you use Kahoot, it will be in there and you can use the same button to get the same features. And then once it's in Immersive Reader mode, it will work in exactly the same way. So pupils get used to looking for that button and then they will use it when they have other platforms open. Office Lens is another platform that's really useful. So Office Lens is an app, and you can install it on a phone or you can install it on a tablet device. But I have really adopted this and moved away from using visualizers at the front of the class. When I have a piece of text, I could hold the Office Lens over and I can then mirror it to the board, and I can use it like a visualizer but around the classroom. But also I've used it quite effectively for capturing pupils' work. So you can hold Office Lens over the top of a page of pupil work, over the top of a book like this. You can capture the page. It can save to your OneDrive, and then in your when your OneNote class notebook, you can insert it, or you can insert directly to the page. So you can send it from there. The video that I'm going to show you on the slide will show you just how easy that works. And again, Office Lens is something that's free. There's no additional charge for that or any of the features within it. You can just install it and use it. So you hold it over the page of the book. It captures the page of the book. Then you get the option of where you want to send it to. So I want to apply to Immersive Reader, so I can take that page from the book. It's recognized the text, and it reads it out loud to you. Same features to change for accessibility that are there in Office Lens. You've got all three of the tabs available to you, so you can change that around to suit what you need. And then once you've finished with it in that mode, you can get the information across to the other application. It's really useful little app, and something that again helps with accessibility, because if someone's struggling in the class, it might be that a lot of the people are struggling in the class. You can quickly grab it, you can quickly throw it up. If somebody's, again, as we always would, celebrate by putting a book underneath the visualizer at the front, where you don't have to be there anymore. You might be sat working with a group of pupils at a table. You could just use the camera on your laptop, or you could use, if you're lucky enough, a camera on your tablet device, and then get that happening. PowerPoint Live is another great feature. So PowerPoint Live works with Translator, that we'll look at the end of this session. But what you can get are subtitles which go underneath the PowerPoint slides. So if you are presenting a PowerPoint and you're talking in English, the pupils can have Translator enabled, and they can get subtitles like it is under their slide 4. You can see that it's coming up there, and the French is appearing underneath the English slide. And if the French speaking pupil is looking at that, all of a sudden they're getting subtitles in their language, which really helps. PowerPoint Live, again, is only available in the latest versions of Office on desktop, and that's going to be a theme with a lot of these features, or on the online version. And the web app is always there. So the web app you could open up in a browser and have it as a tab, so you can get access to that even if you have the older version of Office installed on your computer. The auto captions pretty much work in that way. So with thinking of writing in our inclusive classroom, what you can do in Word, and we won't labor this too much, but there's a dictate tool in Word, and you can dictate straight into Word, so you don't have to use the keyboard to type in. You can also use the ideas on the side, and ideas will give you ideas for making the document more accessible. Let's quickly jump over and have a look at that a moment before we carry on. So if we just flip into that, just going to swap over on the camera again. So jump into the browser, and then we'll go to our app launcher and we'll pick up Word. Open a new tab. And I think we'll just open up a document we've used previously. So what you can use over here is your dictation. So if I go down to a new line, into dictation, up will come the dictation tools. You do need to allow access to your microphone, and it will start listening. So all of a sudden you're going to get machine learning, and you say, hello, how are we today? I think we are going to have a look at a science experiment. And then when you're finished, you can switch it off. And that will help pupils with suddenly taking away the barrier of a keyboard and tapping with keys and fingers, and you can just talk to your computer. The machine learning behind that is really good. It does require an internet connection, whether you're using the desktop software or the online web app. But once that's there, even if you've got a slow broadband connection in school, it will work really effectively. You can choose between your languages as well, so it will pick up if you're talking in a different language and get that on the page. So it's quite a leveler with getting information and getting it over and into the document itself. We have next maths. So maths itself, I think I'll stay with what I've got over here at the moment. Maths, there's a really nifty little tool in OneNote class notebook, and I know that we briefly looked at it last time, so I won't spend too much time looking at it. But maths itself is built into OneNote, and if I change the pages that I've got here, and I maybe go to maths. And I've got my addition subtraction. What I can do, if I had this open on my whiteboard and I've got my pen that I use, instead of using the dedicated smart software or the dedicated Active Inspire software on the board, depending on which brand you have, I could have OneNote class notebook open. The beauty of that is that my pupils have got Office 365 accounts. In what I did on the board with them in the daytime, they can then get to. At the moment, these are ones in teacher only, but I'd normally store it in content library, which is read only for them, or collaboration space, which they can edit. And if they're going to do some homework and they need to check back what we were doing in the daytime, well, they could just go to the page in the relevant section and they can have a look at it. It's not like my work is personal to me anymore. The work that I'm using with them is very much open so that they've got it to help them when they need that help. And it also cuts down, I find, on the amount of questions I get the following day or notes from parents that need help as well. So what I could do is I can highlight the calculation I've got, and then let's go to draw, I click the maths. Out from the side on maths, it's recognized that I've got that there. I can ink to maths, so I can change my handwriting into a typed version. If I need to fix something, press the fix it button. So maybe my handwriting wasn't particularly neat and it picked up my addition as multiplication, you can fix it. But what you can do is you can evaluate. So it will give you what the answer is. And then you can show the steps to getting there so they can be independent in doing that. Or you can generate a practice quiz in Forms. And that will then allow them to generate a practice quiz, or for you to have a practice quiz generated. And when you press that, what you'll get is a form that's here on the page. It will take the calculation you've done and it will then generate some more questions, the number that you choose. There's Immersive Reader again, so it can be read to you because we're doing maths. It shouldn't be a barrier that you can't read. And the same will be on the solution steps. If I went to solution steps, there's Immersive Reader again, so I can toggle on Immersive Reader. And the maths tool is another way that you can provide access to learning. So if they've got something and they're not quite sure if they got the correct answer, they can be more independent in marking their own work, or they can get some help with reading the question because they can toggle on Immersive Reader. So the maths tool is there in OneNote class notebook. Whichever version you're using, whether it's the web app version, the Windows 10 version, or the version that comes with Office, that function is in there. It does need the internet to work, but once you've got that on, you'll be able to go in and get the answers in the maths tool. So maths tool is another one that's particularly useful. One of the other areas is the maths solver. So the maths solver itself, the maths tool, can be used generally on its own. So the maths tool can sit as a website, and the website can then be opened, and you can use that to get to what you need to in the way of more advanced maths calculations. I won't show you that today, but just to let you know that that dedicated website is there, and the maths solver tool is something that's really handy. I'm going to come back over to the presentation. What I would say with everything we're showing you today is don't force the situation. If it feels natural because you know that there's a need for a solution or something you need to solve, then have a go at using one of these tools, but please don't try and use all of them, because I'm showing you a lot of them today, and what I want you to do is cherry pick the one or two that you want to include in your MIEE application, or that you feel is relevant for your role in school, or might be relevant for somebody else because you've heard them struggling with something. So it's one of those things that pair it back to you, pair it back to the situation you've got. And Anna, it's good to hear or good to see that you've had some success with that as we've been going along. Just going to reshare the presentation in a moment. So we'll focus on communication next. In the communication section, what you can do is use Presenter Coach, and when we break off from this section of the presentation, I'll show you how that works. But instead of you coaching pupils on how to present appropriately, you can use the Presenter Coach tool in PowerPoint, and that goes along with the captions being really useful. You've got PowerPoint Live, which we spoke about earlier. This is a bit more of a demo. PowerPoint Live you can see on practically any device, but as the person's presenting, you'll get those subtitles that appear at the bottom of the screen, and all you have to do is scan a QR code on the screen, you join the presentation, and away you go. And it's such a simple version of getting captions underneath. This is what it looks like on a mobile phone or a tablet device. You choose Spanish. I would be wittering away there in English, and then all of a sudden all of that comes up underneath in Spanish, and that pupil has their needs accommodated, but it also helps them bridge the gap between the language that they came into school speaking and getting to understand English, and then hopefully being able to bridge the gap between the two and use both languages, and maybe even help outside school with parents at home and so forth. What that looks like over in the real thing is like this. If I jump across a moment. And reshare the other window. Some lag on my connection today. Right, that should be there. So what it looks like on the other side, if I go over, I've just got a fake staff meeting presentation open here. There's Immersive Reader, as we said earlier. But what you can do is you can go in, you've got all your normal tools here online, but you've also got the Present with Coach ability too. So if you went to Present, and I'm just trying to work out which tab it was on. Up until a couple of weeks ago, it was on one of the tabs, and I think it was the Review tab from memory. Things keep moving so fast that you often come in and you go, oh, that's not where I left it, or not how I thought it was going to go. But it used to be on one of these tabs, and I think it was Review. But if it's throwing you, and it did throw me last week when I come to it and I was running another session, up here on Present is now where Microsoft have squirreled away Rehearse with Coach. It's also where they've put Present Live. So they've taken them off of the ribbon and they've put them up here. If you're going to present live, it will take you into this version. There's the QR code that you're going to get. It will take just a moment to generate. And once it's presented live, if you had Translator on, you can scan the QR code that's going to come up on screen with Translator. And I would see as a teacher the number of people joining, and it would go from 0 up to 30, whatever I've got. And then I would go straight into show slides. And as I was speaking, they would be getting the subtitles I showed you in the slide animation there. If anyone needs to get in and they're stuck on their way through, they can always use the join code there rather than the QR code. You've got both of those options available to you. And when you've finished, all you do is you come out of the presentation, and you could skip between slides if you want, and you can resume the session, and that's with the live presentation on, or you can end the session and then that will end the live presentation, so they'll no longer get subtitles when you do that. So that's PowerPoint Live. And then Rehearse with Coach, which is the other accessibility tool. What you do is you go into Rehearse with Coach. It's using the mic on your computer. You'll get this little pop-up window on the right hand side. You can get real-time feedback. I would leave that ticked, and you can start rehearsing. And I'm going to make some deliberate mistakes now so that we get some good feedback at the end. But you'll also get prompts in this box in the bottom right-hand corner as you go through. So I hit start rehearsing. I say, welcome to today's staff meeting. We've got quite a lot to get through. We've got to get through policies. We've got school processes. We've got any other business to get through. The annual review was quite busy. Oh, it's going to tell me to speak. So I'll slow right down. And the updates are going to take quite a bit of time. And I'm not quite sure about what the new policies are. And next meeting, we might just look at the next academic year. And then we finish. So I come out of my slideshow. And then what I will instantly get is a report on the screen, and I've used this with colleagues, if it tactfully use this with colleagues, but I also used it a lot with pupils and students, because instead of me listening to them present or hearing a really unusual presentation style when I come to sit there as a teacher, I can get them to rehearse with the coach feature, and it will give them a dashboard feedback. It tells them about repetitive language, so I've got pretty fairly, and it gives them about inclusiveness. It tells me I have been inclusive. My pitch is quite often, it was dropping down there. I can see my pace, 133 words per minute. I'm using a lot of fillers deliberately. But what you do is you get greater accessibility to thinking about, well, what makes a good presentation? How am I going to be more polished? But you can get the technology to do some of the heavy lifting for you as a teacher. So again, reducing workloads and getting them to have a little practice might free up some time for you to do something else, or work with an intervention group, or go and work with a particular pupil you know really needs some support in this. So that is Rehearse and Present with Coach. And then I think the last thing to show you today is the Translator Tool, which I've been speaking about. And the translation tool can tally up with using Present Live, as we've shown you in PowerPoint. You can also use the captions option in OneNote as well. So you can have captions appearing under OneNote. So if I duck over and I go to OneNote and I go to Class Notebook, no, I don't go to Class Notebook, I go to View. You've got live captions over here. So if you want to have live captions coming up underneath your OneNote and you're using it in class, you can use a translator join code. You choose your language and you press join as an individual. And then as the teacher's using OneNote to teach, you get the same as live in PowerPoint, and it will then come up in OneNote. So there's another way to use that there. All of this hinges on you using Translator. Translator can be an app. You can install it from the Microsoft Store on Windows 10 and 11, or you can use the web version. This isn't just for the classroom. I've used this with parental meetings. Maybe we've got parents that don't speak English particularly well, but they're really willing to come in and engage with school, and they want to support us. So I have used this before with a parent on a mobile phone in the meeting room and me on this. And what you can do is you can have either joining a conversation. So you'd be given a join code, and we'll show you the join codes in a bit. You pop in your name, so that'd be the parent's name, their language, so they choose their language so that it translates. They might be Italian. And then you join the conversation. And as I'm busy talking in the meeting room in English or in class, it will translate to Italian for them. I'm just going to pop it back to English, otherwise it's going to cause all sorts of peculiarities when we get to the other side. You can go to start conversation, but you'll need to sign in. Microsoft have made this freely available, so you can sign in with a Google account or a Microsoft account. I'm going to sign in with a Microsoft account, and in it goes. No, I don't want that version, thank you. So I'm going to put my name in, and I'm going to put Martin, and then my language is English because it needs to know which language I'm speaking in. I'm going to go to start conversation. That will take me across to the conversation window, and it prompts all the other people to get their devices and think about their join codes. So you go to next, and next again, and next again, and next again. And then it will test your mic button. I know my mic works, so I'm just going to skip past that. And then you can say your mic always stays on, or you can mute others. So if you were presenting across the internet using this, you might say, look, I don't want others talking over the top of me, so I'm going to mute them, or you may leave it open for two-way speech. And then once I am speaking, I will need to allow my microphone, but it will then start to come up, and everything I say is going to be captured in the script in front of me. But each time I pause, it will then start on a new line, and off I go again. You'll get used to talking using Translator. You've always got the conversation code at the top, but you've got some other options up here. So conversations, there's your QR code to scan if you've got a tablet device, a mobile device. I quite readily copy those and I paste them into things like Teams, or I put them onto the page of a OneNote so that the pupils I'm working with can join. You've also over here got various functions. So there is the mic stays on and the mute others function. You can change this after. You can also mask profanity. So if I did utter a rude word, it would get blanked out. And also if pupils try to do that, it blanks out as well. You can lock the conversation afterwards, so you can have it as a record of a dialogue you had in a meeting with a parent, and then you can lock the conversation to stop them coming back in and joining again, and it can be a record of that conversation with that parent. You can also say, look, I want partial messages to display, and I do at the moment in time. And you can do things like change the font size of what's coming up on screen. Microsoft have thought about the visual impairment side of it at the same time. When you're finished, you press the leave conversation button and away it goes. If you don't want it listening to you the whole time like it is, press the microphone button at the bottom and it will disable the way that it tracks what you're doing and saying. So Microsoft Translator works as a piece of software on its own, but also crosses over into the likes of PowerPoint Live and also captions in OneNote class notebook, and will just give you another way of working with different groups of people in school. And it's a Microsoft product. It's quite easy to pick up and use, and it doesn't even require the software to be installed. As you can see, the web version is working quite happily here for me. Any questions on the last two I've been through? So captions, PowerPoint Live, or Translator? Anybody want to ask anything about those? Nothing in the chat? No? Okay, I'm going to jump back over to the presentation. So Translator itself has got a lot of languages built in. It's got 10 speech languages, but 63 text languages, and those are ever increasing. So whichever languages are requested the most are the ones that Microsoft pops in there, and it will grow. You can have 100 people in this at a time. So unless you're doing something crazy like a whole meeting in a hall and you've got everyone jumping in using Translator, it will pretty much cope, and it's available on so many different platforms, and it's free. It won't be charged for. You haven't got to have a subscription. There's no licensing required. It just works. So this is part of Microsoft making accessibility inclusion open and available to all. So there's another app that you could try using, and again, consideration of whether you want to use it as evidence in your MIEE application. I think what we've got there is discussed. The links are there for you to get when I put the slide deck in our team, so you can always jump on. But if you search for Microsoft Translator, you will find it. The MEC or the MLEC has a few good courses available, so you can have getting started with Immersive Reader. I've missed a word out there. You can also have independent learning with maths tools in OneNote, and in there is the maths tool that I showed you, and PowerPoint Presenter Coach is in there too. As far as our sessions are concerned, we're on session 3. Session 4 is going to be 26th of April after the Easter breaks, and we will have a good look at how to use Sway for presentations and also how to use forms for collecting data in all areas of the school. And then that will lead through to session 5 on Minecraft, and then we hope to have some sort of celebration session together. There will be, and we're hoping it's the 10th of May, a showcase school event that we're organising with another Microsoft partner. At the moment, we're trying to arrange for that to be on site. The location is yet to be determined, but as soon as we get the details, we'll let you know. We're aiming for the 10th of May. However, the school has to be able to accommodate us on that day, so that date may move slightly. We'll update you as soon as we've got any details. I did say that there would be a code, and if you're watching this back and it's a recording, that code will remain live and you'll be able to redeem it. As always, you'll need to go to the Microsoft Education Center or the Microsoft Learn Education Center, top right hand corner, sign in. Once you're signed in, you'll see your initials. Click your initials. That will open up a little window where you've got the redeem achievement code option on the side, and then you get a pop-up window in the middle and you can insert that code that you've got there on the screen. I'll also try and go and grab that code and pop it on in the chat for us as well. But that will then give you the 1,000 points you need to become an MIE, and it takes away the need and the additional workload that you might have of trying to find the time to do a couple of courses independently. And we'll keep doing those every single time, so that one of the benefits of coming along to the sessions, it's one less job for you to have to do or undertake independently. It's just taken care of, so you can think of concentrating on your application and making sure that that's right. just go and grab that code and I'll paste it in the chat so that you've got that available to copy and paste if you don't want to type it in from the screen. And that is going in now. It's not showing up particularly well. Sorry, it's in dark grey on a purple background, but if you highlight it where I've just posted at 1625, you'll be able to grab that code and paste it independently into the other side. So really for today, it's a reminder, follow these people like Hector Minto, like Mike Tholson, and Jen King, who's the UK education lead. Turn it on, always posting on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can always ask us questions by emailing us or jumping into the team. And then if you need any help with wider things from Turn It On, you are welcome to contact us and talk to us about that. So at this point, it's over to you. Have you got any general questions you'd like to ask about accessibility tools or independence with learning or anything about the application? I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm also going to stop the recording at this point.